So I was doing many things at that time where I was performing in Rock of Ages, performing in other shows, and moonlighting at the Golden Knights doing the games.
Sure.
And I put Vegas Golden Knights in first base at that time. I didn't want to miss any games because I was so passionate about the sport.
Yeah.
And so I would host 41 home games with Big D, who's now in Nashville. He's no longer there. But I was just the in-arena host for the Golden Knights, playing a small piece to that in-arena experience. But that opportunity gave me a platform in front of 18,000 people 41 times a year.
Dude.
And it just opened the doors to other things. Obviously, Todd DeBoeuf and Brad Jacobs and Bob Arum, who run Top Rank Boxing based in Vegas, saw me at a hockey game year one. And out of the blue, I get a phone call from CAA Sports in Century City saying, hey, Mark, you want to come work in boxing and work for Top Rank on ESPN? I was like, what? I got it.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special treat in the house today. And this man can light up an arena, quite literally. He does. So if you haven't seen him yet, you're bound to. If you're in Vegas, he can bring the heat because, again, we're in Vegas. It's hot out here, but it's kind of funny because you're in an arena where there's ice a lot of the time, right? And as I think about sort of learning about your background coming from Canada, north of the, like I think you said, Detroit area, the journey for you to be where you're at today, I feel blessed and privileged to have you across from me right now, and you were so kind in responding and interacting online, which sometimes there's always that gap and there's that stranger feeling, but dude, you opened up with I feel like big, bare open arms. So, and here we are because it's going to be very valuable. But Mark, man, you know, you have an epic story, journey, and because I always like that part, I'm very committed to sharing those pieces of people's life. Walk us down the path, man, to allow us to understand where you came from in order to get to this place that you are today. And then I will have a lot of fun with what you share to start to unpack a lot more of what you're sharing there, man. So let's do it.
Well, thanks for having me on. I had a shower, I got in my car, and I drove here. That's how I got to where I am today.
That's it. That's the podcast. Thanks for coming. It's done.
That's as interesting as it gets. Yeah. Now, thanks for having me on, dude. This is special. So, you know, no, I guess you got to start with just family. You know, I come from an incredible family of, I'm the youngest of 5.
Wow.
Like you said, I grew up in Northern Ontario. Sault Ste. Marie, it's about 5 hours north of Detroit, Michigan, and just an awesome family. You know, we talk every day to this day.
Amazing.
All of us, we get together as much as we can, as busy as we are. Everybody's incredibly successful in their own career paths. Mom and dad retired now in their 80s, checking in every day. But it all starts there. It all starts at the dinner table, just like this. You know, we were not forced, but every day at 5 o'clock when Dad got home from work, the 7 of us would sit down and have dinner.
I got the chills, man.
And that's sort of, I think, what started everything for me, and just sort of the way I approach life, business, work. It all starts around the dinner table.
Yeah, that's incredible because I just had a son. And
congratulations.
Yeah, man, that's life-changing, right? I can't imagine 5. Right. So there's a lot of things that even in that right there that make me want to go to a questions point, which is the values and the principles that your family instilled in you all, which was, let's come to the dinner table. What other elements of life did they ingrain into you? And then I think even that plus you being the youngest of 5, did that create some sort of, you know, urgency or measurement stick that you had looked up into your siblings and they were doing great things and there was this hierarchy of accomplishments possibly to which you found that and became more motivated, wanted to own up to something? I'm very curious about that dynamic and how that all interconnected in how you made your journey upward, right? And what that all taught you, because I'll talk about Tom Brady because Tom Brady talked about this. He was, I think, the 4th of 4, and it helped him become more competitive and realize that there was other talented athletes, and he was like, I got to jump in there and do this. So I'm very curious how that was a part of your life there.
You know, I don't think there was pressure per se, but I always looked up to all of my older siblings. And, there's a big gap between my oldest brother and myself. My oldest brother's going to be 60 this year,
wow.
has grandkids, incredibly successful. My dad's 84 years old. He had his first son at 24. And then myself, I think there's an 8-year gap, 7-year gap between myself and my sibling above me. So when I got to high school, per se,
Right.
everybody was already out of the house. So I was like an only child.
Wow.
With my most vivid memories of growing up in Sault Ste. Marie. But I can say that sitting at the dinner table, I didn't get a lot of words in, being the youngest of 5. So I think I'm making up for it now. I talk a lot for work.
Sure.
So no, I don't think there was pressure, but I definitely looked up to everybody in my family and aspired to be like them. I didn't know that the career that I would have is what I would have. It's not what I set out to do as a kid. I wanted to be a professional hockey player, just like everybody else in Canada. I was born with skates on, played the game as long as I possibly could, was a third-string goaltender in the Canadian Hockey League, and just loved the culture of the game of hockey. It was such a big part of my hometown. It's there's snow on the ground almost year-round. I'm kidding. It's not year-round, but it feels like it. And you're in a rink, and I spent a lot of time following my father after his work. He was a dentist by trade, but in the late 80s, he acquired the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds, which is our junior franchise from Phil and Tony Esposito. And if you look up the Sault Ste. Marie Greyhounds and who played there as a young professional, the likes of Wayne Gretzky, John Van Beesbrook, Rick Tocchet, Bookaboom, it's just Hockey Canada. The history in that town of young men coming through Sault Ste. Marie to play hockey for the Greyhounds. It was just a big part of what the city is, its culture, its identity. We have a steel mill, a hockey team, and an amazing community of folks who call Sault Ste. Marie home, and hockey is such a big part of that culture. So for me, it was just school on the ice, school on the ice. And then when, those days, fizzle out, hey, well, I'm not going any further. I'm not going overseas to Europe to play. You got to find something else to do. And I had, luckily, 4 older siblings to look up to and 2 incredible parents to support whatever those next choices would be. And they were tough. As a young kid, you think you know everything, and you really don't. And I just rolled with it. But I was very fortunate to have the family that I did to allow myself the time and freedom to figure it out. And I'm so grateful for Vegas, man. This is, it's been an unbelievable 12, 13 years here now, calling it home. But getting here was a journey.
I think I listened to something that you said about the point when you were at your finishing line of hockey. I think you were 17, 18, right? And you're in that place where you realize that you're not as good as you want to be, right? Where you're like, damn, I want to play forever, but the reality is my talent level has maxed out. I understand that because I was an athlete myself. I played baseball, and I went to college here in the States, in San Francisco, and basically realized and I was good, but I wasn't that good. And the next level for me was kind of like, hey man, is it realistic to keep having this big Major League Baseball dream? And then you realize you're at the finish line. So I say that because what happened to me in quitting college baseball, coming back to Vegas home for me here, was almost like an identity crisis, right? It's like, dude, I've built up this whole model of my life to become the star professional baseball player. And here I am at 19 now, making the decision to stop this thing that I've been building up for 9 years, almost a decade. And I have to go back into the real world and re-identify myself. How did you adjust, or what was your mentality in that transition from that hockey space of like, hey man, this isn't it for me. Now I've got to go figure out what to do next. Do you remember what it was like when you were that young to go through that and think through the process there?
Yes and no. I remember the specifics of calling home while I was on the road. I was living in Southern Ontario, third stringing it, being tossed around from team to team, calling home and said, hey, I think I want to come home. And I think it's a testament to my family more than it was to me at the time, because they were the ones to really listen and guide. There was no forced, you're doing this ever in our family, ever. And, I look at stories that you see in documentaries of these incredible athletes who lived that life where their parents said, hey, you're doing this, you're going to do this, and this is all we're going to focus on. And I think about that sometimes where had my mother and father put their foot down and said, oh, no, you're going to stay in the net and you're going to keep stopping pucks. It may have been a little different, because I felt like I was good enough to keep playing.
Interesting.
I don't think at that age I had the mental capacity to follow the talent, right? Like there's a big difference between somebody who's just good at a sport and somebody who understands that they're good at a sport.
Somebody that works like Kobe Bryant behind the scenes. Yeah.
And so I think if I were to look back, it's not that I have regrets. I don't think my maturity was where it needed to be in order to continue playing at that level, at that age. And I think there are a lot of young players now who have the maturity level much sooner. And I clearly didn't. I was the goofy kid. I was messing around on the bus, coach always telling me to shut up, having a great time. And I made it fun. Yeah. And it wasn't a profession yet. Whereas now I think that's sort of what I carry with me as I look back on that, and I don't let the fun and the passion overshadow the professional commitment that's required and the maturity that's required in order to be successful. So when I left sports and went into entertainment, which is just as cutthroat and just as difficult to break into, I think the lesson learned from giving up, if that's not necessarily the right term, but resigning from my pursuit of professional sports, I think that's what's motivated me to this day to continue on wherever the journey may take me. At least I'm in it and I'm committed. I'm here, I'm present, and I'm going to give it my all. So no matter what phone call may come, I'm in it 100%. And I think that's one of the most, and I think my circle of friends and colleagues that I work with on a day-to-day will say that's probably one of my best attributes. At least that's what I think, is that if you get me, you're getting me 110%.
Sure.
And it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a philanthropic endeavor, hosting a charity event, or Top Rank Boxing, or the Golden Knights, you're going to get all of me. There's no showing up and grabbing a microphone and being lackadaisical, right? People will call you out on that right away. And as a host, you got to be on, you got to be present. So that is, I think, the biggest sort of pivot for me, and that's what I carry to this day.
Sure.
Is just that determination and professionalism, so that when somebody makes the call and says, hey, we need Shunock over here, they know what they're getting. And I think that's a testament to mom and dad too, though, because those were the lessons they instilled in all of us. There was never, like I said, that pressure to stay in this lane and you have to do this. They let us go in whatever lane we wanted to go in, but it was such a nourished, loved, and supported lane that we felt we could do anything.
Sure.
And so, I carry that with me every day. And I said that when we started. I talk to my family every day, and they're the ones that have my back. Because at the end of the day, our family, our nucleus is everything we have. And now I definitely have family members outside of my immediate family, but, I only surround myself with people who want to water the plants, nourish them, and watch them grow, not the other way around. And I think that's important for everyone. Regardless of what you do, just surround yourself with great people. Yeah,
no, absolutely, man. I think about, no, very well said. I had the opposite. I had people around me family-wise, but my mom died young. I didn't have a mom, so basically she was out of my life. And then my dad was that like tough guy, believed in me, kind of like you said, your family was always there for you. He played that role. So this whole family thing for me is newer, especially with my fiance, who's full of love from the family, like yours. Like that's what they did. Like we get into it. Not badly, but like she was like, this is what we want to set as our family standard. I'm like, let's go out here and change the world. She's like, no, but we're having dinner every night at this time. And I'm like, okay, I get it. The sport itself, the lessons that come from that, and what that taught you, in addition to what you were becoming from the family and what they had you grow through, what were some of those? Not talking about the transition point, the pivot of the maturity point to go into entertainment, but more of like the day-to-day, right? The idea of showing up to practice every day, the idea of, and again, I have a lot of respect for someone like you that decides to go into a ring and get his ass kicked every day and just like beat up, because that's physically enduring. And for me, processing that, I'm like, I don't think I would do that, right? Like I got into football and I was like, no, I ain't doing that, man. That's too much. So how does that groom you as a young man? How does that shape you in terms of what other principles and experiences you gain in the sport itself to help enhance what you're doing and becoming to eventually keep continuing you down that path?
You know, I think it's pretty straightforward. It's a group of people coming together for a common cause, right? To either win the game or put on a show. There's this, I tell this one a lot, where there's a clear synergy between a bunch of guys in a locker room getting ready and a cast rehearsing for a show. And, you know, I picked up on that pretty quickly after I moved to New York City and started doing theater all over the country. I would walk into a first rehearsal and sit at a table and do a script read, and I'm looking around going, man, this is no different than a team getting ready in a locker room. You know, working hard to come together as one to put on the best possible show or put on the best possible product and go out and win the game. You know, it's just a group of dedicated people in that field working hard together. Teamwork, you know, and it doesn't matter if you're watching a television show, a team on the ice, a team on the field, a Broadway performance, a street artist. You know, that preparation is pretty much the same.
Sure.
You know, it's very physical, and you got to be right of mind upstairs and healthy, and you're all coming together working. So, you know, it's great being a part of a team. You know, and I was a part of some great teams and have great teams around me now.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's teamwork.
Yeah. No, it's fantastic. And I think I think that the teamwork element is championed by great leadership, right? There's got to be somebody in there that's kind of guiding the light and ensuring that the standard is met, that the expectations are in place, which good coaching always is kind of the evidence of that. So I like that a lot, man. It's very, very nice. So you transition out and you head off to do entertainment from hockey. Okay, so then that takes you where? And what happens there? What's the next phase look like? And you know, tell us some more about what that journey begins to carve out.
That's a long story, but it's a good one. You know, of all places, Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario it's isolated in the north. Like I said, 5 hours north of Detroit. At the time that I had come home from Southern Ontario to finish out high school, my last year of high school, literally had a year of high school. And by that point, it wasn't even a full year. I only had a couple credits to get. So I was like in my hometown figuring out what was next. Lila Kadrova is a Oscar-winning actress who had retired to my hometown with her husband, a gentleman by the name of Richard Howard. And they started a local theater company in my hometown, and it gets better. They operated out of the back of a Chinese restaurant. You can't make this up. Like, this is a movie waiting to be written, right? A tiny Northern Ontario, and not small town. It's 75,000 people, so it's not a small town, but it was just isolated. The biggest city to us was Detroit or Toronto. But in the back of this Chinese restaurant was this local theater company run by an Oscar-winning actress and an award-winning director. And so I get wooed into getting on stage, and it was some Chekhov play. I think it was The Cherry Orchard. We're talking heavy theater, you know, and she was Russian, and so she did this incredible production. And my eyes were opened up to what we had just talked about, this team coming together to put on a play. And I got the bug. And I was fortunate enough not to go off track, but there was young men and women in my hometown who had gone on to pursue theater as a profession in various different colleges throughout Canada and the United States. And I followed their path a little bit. I looked into it. And again, growing up where I did, I didn't know at that time what Carnegie Mellon was or NYU or Juilliard or Tisch. I just didn't know what those schools were, you know, and it's household names here when it comes to entertainment in the United States. Yale, I don't know what the hell Yale was. Harvard, you hear about it, but you don't know if you can actually play with those boys. So I ended up moving to New York. I studied for 3 years at a conservatory and the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. And then I just threw myself into any class or situation where I could better myself in the art. And I sounded like I was from Canada. You can still hear it a little bit in my voice, but back then I had the big Ontario Canadian accent. And so I just threw myself into the world of theater in New York City, and I studied with anybody who would let me study with them. And then it just turned into the grind game, you know, and there were days that weren't easy. You know, I'd have to work as a bartender or a waiter or a door guy at a nightclub in order to keep my days free to audition, because all the auditions took place during business hours. And if you were lucky enough to book something, there you were. You got it and you kept moving. And I think, again, going back to what I talked about, I never lost the hustle. I never lost the will to succeed. And my definition of success was different than others. You know, I didn't want to get off a bus and be like, I'm a star the next day. That's not what it was about. I just wanted to work. I wanted to work in entertainment, cash checks, and say, hey, I work in entertainment. And I was fortunate, you know, as a Canadian who had relocated to the United States after you graduate college, you're given a year legally to stay in the country with a visa, but you have to be able to work in your profession, nothing else. And so there was a little bit of pressure on me to hustle and get gigs so that I could apply for possibly a green card or citizenship. And so in that first year out of college, I was literally taking every acting job I possibly could. You know, and we're talking some weird stuff. There was an MTV commercial back in the day, and I was in some Fry Guy costume. You couldn't even see my face, but because I could skate, they're like, get somebody who can roller skate. And I'm doing this goofy commercial. Did Olive Garden commercials, independent movies that I won't mention because I don't want you to see them. But the goal was to just build up a resume in the field so I could use every dollar I had to hire an immigration lawyer to get me in the country longer. And so the hustle started day one. You know, when I knew school was ending, I was like, day one, I better get at this because I'm going to get booted and go back to Canada. And I didn't want to. And, you know, now I've been in the United States longer than I spent time in Canada as a child. I'm aging myself, but, you know, I've been in the United States over 20 years. I'm a citizen, you know, I vote in elections. I'm an American, you know. But I think that sort of hustle needed out of college is what allowed me to pivot quickly. It's a weird transition from a kid who wanted to be a hockey player to singing and dancing in shows. But that's sort of where I let the journey take me. And I wouldn't change a thing. You know, I spent almost a decade in New York City. I moved to Los Angeles and started working out in LA, and I was in LA for about 6-7 years. And then Rock of Ages called and said, hey, you want to open Rock of Ages at the Venetian? And at that time, you know, I was just aware of Vegas like everybody else. 3 days in it, hit it hard, great food, great shows, maybe a nightclub or two, and you go home. And that's what I knew of Vegas. So at that time when they called and said, hey, do you want to open Rock of Ages at the Venetian? I was like, yeah, I'll do 6 months to a year. Well, we all know how that worked out. Here we are 12, 13 years later.
And I think Vegas has always been Vegas. I've been here my whole life. But recently the pop of Vegas has exploded, right? Because I think what happened with the shakeup of the pandemic, a lot of people moved out here because they were like, oh, hell, I ain't dealing with this stuff elsewhere in California, for example. And they got out here and they started to realize how awesome this place was. And then you have the sports franchises that are starting to pile on, and it just keeps going. So it's been neat to see that part. Now, when you're doing the entertainment back in New York and you're in the hustle and you're grinding, are you being fed by people that you're working with, that you're talented, that you're gifted, that you can do this, that you have potential to do something bigger or greater? Or is this just your sheer will attacking the marketplace, going out there to try to find gigs, and you're like, I'm going to figure it out either way? Because I do believe that, right? I believe that there's good people out there that are like, you know, kid, you got something, right? And then that they're not just telling you that because they want to tell you that. They're actually like, if you develop this thing, right, it could be something. Did you have some of that come through when you started to go into the entertainment world, or are you just pounding pavement trying to earn your right?
I think it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
The entertainment industry is very cutthroat, right? So while your brother standing there may say, you're the bomb, Shunock, you're great, he wants that job just as much as you want that job. That's why you hang out with people who aren't in your same category, right? You hang out with a lot of girls and guys that are 6'3", and I'm 5'7". So it was a little bit of both. In New York, it is pound the pavement. It is be ready at all time. That was my biggest concern, right? The phone rings, somebody calls you for an audition, and you're not available. That was always my fear. So I would always work those odds and end jobs that were 5 o'clock to 2 in the morning kind of gigs, right? And that's where I met my support team. I met my support team in the hospitality industry.
Wow.
And to this day, some of my best friends are hospitality professionals. And I will say part of the reason why I'm still in Las Vegas is because of the hospitality community. I think hospitality and entertainment in Las Vegas are one and the same. Whereas in New York and Los Angeles, the entertainment communities are clearly defined with Broadway performers, film and television in Hollywood. And they're not intertwined with those who run the best food and beverage programs on the nation. But when you come to Vegas, the whole mission of Las Vegas is to make 50 million people feel incredible when they come to visit us. And how do they feel incredible? It's through beautiful resorts, the restaurants that are in those resorts, and the shows that are in those resorts. And all of the people who work in those lanes support each other. And that was one of the things I caught on to quickly. When I would park my car at the Venetian, by the time I got to my dressing room, I probably said hello to 30 or 40 employees of the Palazzo Venetian. And that's when I realized this city really was something special, because everybody's mission was to serve. And when you understand that you're a part of this well-oiled machine that is designed to serve, and you're no better than the guy dealing the cards, the person opening the door, taking your ticket, cleaning your wardrobe, putting your wig on, singing the songs. We're a part of this system. And that's the community that I latched onto quickly. And then having the experience of working in hospitality for so long in New York and LA, I could speak the language. I understood what they were doing. I got their frustrations. I got their wins. I got their losses. And that's what made the community out here for me special, because I might be in the show, you might be the GM of a bar or a bartender or a pit boss, but we could speak the same language. And again, it's to serve. You know, I might be on stage singing a song or telling jokes, but my role is no more important than yours, who's filling my gin and tonic or dealing me a 21. And that's what makes Vegas so cool, is the thousands of people who are here to serve you and make you have a good time. That's a special breed, right? And I think that's what makes Vegas special, is the people, not the big buildings. It's the people in the buildings that make those buildings go. So for me, that's why I'm still here. That's why I give back to the community the way we do with our Monday's Dark organization. And then you can't avoid the sports, infectious sports that, in my opinion, changed the city for better. It took a city on steroids and put it on, you know, I don't even know, a nitron bomb, if that's even a term. Like, it's incredible what pro sports did for Las Vegas. And the Golden Knights story is funny, so hopefully we can talk about how I got involved with the hockey team, because that's...
We talk about it all, man. That's what we're here for.
It's just crazy. Like, it's the full circle moment for me, right? Like, a kid from Canada wanted to play hockey, moved to the U.S. to pursue a career in entertainment, ends up in Vegas in a Broadway show, loving life, meeting all these great people, and then he hears Mr. Bill Foley on the news say, I think I want to bring a pro hockey team to Vegas. And I was cooking at the time, my ears shot up, and I was like, did I just hear what I think here?
Sure enough.
Yeah.
So hey, but go there if you want, man. Like, so because I can always trace back questions I have, man. That's part of it.
No, it was a cool thing, you know. And I think like most people in Vegas at the time, when they heard that announcement, they're like, whatever, give me a break, you know. Let's be real. Me, on the other hand, I was like, what's his name? Where does he work? Who's Bill Foley? You know. I cold called Fidelity Financial. Amazing. Literally saw the news, and I picked up the phone and I said, hey, my name is Mark. I'm an entertainer in town. I happen to be from Northern Ontario, Canada. My father went through this process of acquiring a junior franchise. Is there anything I can do to help? Please hold. And at that time, a gentleman by the name of Todd Pollock was the only employee at Fidelity dedicated to what they were calling Vegas Wants Hockey. That was the name of the campaign.
Okay.
It was 9 years ago. So we're going into season 7. It was 2 years prior to the puck dropping for the first time. So it was 9 years ago now.
2015.
Yeah.
Ish.
And ish. Todd gets on the phone. He goes, Todd Pollock. I said, hey, Todd, my name is Mark Shunock. I'm an entertainer in town. He goes, whoa. Are you Mark Shunock from Rock of Ages? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, I come to your show all the time, bro. You're funny. How can I help you? I said, listen, and I told him the story. I said, I'm from Canada. How can I help? He goes, join our committee. It's called Vegas Wants Hockey. We're meeting at Foley's house in 2 weeks. I'll send you the invite. So I go to the Ridges in Summerlin. At the time, Mr. Foley was living there, and he had a meeting with a bunch of folks, industry professionals, leaders of the community. And I'm looking around this home, this meeting, and I'm just like, how did I get here? You know, how did I end up in this room with, you know, casino executives and business owners and community leaders and politicians, and then, you know, my boy Daniel Negreanu's there, and Floyd Mayweather, and all these incredible Vegas personalities. And all I cared about was helping bring a hockey team to Vegas. So our job was simply to call you and say, hey, I need $1,000 for a season ticket deposit. And the answer would be, well, for what team? Well, our hockey team. Well, which one? Well, it doesn't exist yet. But give me $1,000.
What was the old one we had at the Orleans for a time? The Wranglers.
The Wranglers.
The Wranglers.
Yeah.
I'm like, the Wranglers? I ain't going to Wranglers game.
Hey, dollar beer night. So we got a team. You know, our job was to sell season tickets. We sold 14,000 deposits in about a month, which is actually slow. In comparison, Seattle did it in an hour. But, you know, this is the first time a pro team is coming to Vegas.
Right.
And it took us about a month and a half. And Mr. Foley was now equipped with the arsenal he needed. He had a brand new building being built, T-Mobile Arena. He had 14,000 season ticket deposits, and he had the capital to write the check. And the National Hockey League granted him a franchise. And at that time, I was just like, oh my God, I'm buying season tickets and I'm going to every game.
Interesting.
I wasn't ever thinking about working for the team. It was just, oh my God, I'm the biggest fan.
Yeah.
I can't wait. I'm a Broadway performer at the Venetian, and on my nights off, I can see a hockey game. So I actually bought 4 season tickets thinking I'm just going to support. And I've had my 4 season tickets every year since day one as a fan of the Vegas Golden Knights. And then they started acquiring a front office and hiring people to run the ship. And Nami Abuzaid, who is now with MSG, but he was originally with the Golden Knights. Johnny Greco, who's a big entertainment guy in sports. He was the head of entertainment for the Golden Knights. These are 2 gentlemen that I owe a lot to, just simply because they called me and they knew of me in the community. And Nami said, hey, this young kid's really creative. He does a lot of stuff around town. You should meet with him. Got to meet Johnny. They found out about my entertainment background. I auditioned just like everybody else, and they offered me a job as a host. Changed my life.
Man.
So I was doing many things at that time where I was performing in Rock of Ages, performing in other shows, and moonlighting at the Golden Knights doing the games.
Sure.
And I put Vegas Golden Knights in first base at that time. I didn't want to miss any games because I was so passionate about the sport.
Yeah.
And so I would host 41 home games with Big D, who's now in Nashville. He's no longer there. But I was just the in-arena host for the Golden Knights, playing a small piece to that in-arena experience. But that opportunity gave me a platform in front of 18,000 people 41 times a year.
Dude.
And it just opened the doors to other things. Obviously, Todd DeBoeuf and Brad Jacobs and Bob Arum, who run Top Rank Boxing based in Vegas, saw me at a hockey game year 1. And out of the blue, I get a phone call from CAA Sports in Century City saying, hey, Mark, you want to come work in boxing and work for Top Rank on ESPN? I was like, what? I got 80 songs to sing and a Golden Knights game to go to. That's just sort of, you know, the hustle opened doors. And I don't think if I didn't call Bill Foley's office one day after watching him on Fox or 8 News Now or CBS, I don't know, whichever local news show, I don't think I'd be where I am today, you know? And so the Golden Knights gave me a platform, and I made something out of it.
Sure.
So I'm blessed. I work full-time in sports. I work for the Golden Knights. I work for Top Rank ESPN.
Amazing.
Got my hand in a bunch of pots in Vegas, but it was all because of, you know, Bill saying, I want to bring a pro hockey team to Vegas, and my love of the sport And it's a family affair for me. Like,
Sure.
I don't think there's a moment that I walk into T-Mobile Arena and don't carry my family with me. You know, every time I walk in that door, and a hockey arena smells a very specific way to everybody listening who's in hockey back home. When you walk into a hockey arena, you smell that smell, the chemicals used to keep the ice cold, and the pipes and the boards and the wood. And when I walk into T-Mobile Arena, it instantly brings me home, and it brings me to my family, and it's something that I'll never give up.
It's inspirational.
I love it.
Yeah. That's amazing, man. The point when you're thinking about, you hear the announcement and you make the call and you call Fidelity. I mean, obviously Bill's got, like, he's worth a lot of money. I mean, a fortune. How did you know to call that Fidelity? And the fact, like, how did you know that was connected? That's not, unless they were giving you that information, right? Because it's not like Bill is just making himself widely available, right? And isn't Fidelity it's a massive company?
I guess. I
Right?
just, I Googled it just like every idiot. I'm like, who's Bill Foley? Where's his office?
Yeah.
I ended up tracking him down, or
Wow.
not necessarily Bill, but this Vegas Wants Hockey committee.
So that was your mission, was to track down, because something cued you off to say, this is the committee that you need to go after, and you were willing to go after it.
Just wanted to help.
Yeah.
I was so passionate about the sport, and I was so motivated by his announcement that I was like, yeah, you're right. This will work. Because there were so many skeptics, right? They're
Of
like,
course.
ice hockey
Of
coming to the
course.
desert? What are you talking about? Like you said, we've had it, and it was successful to a certain extent. But this is professional sports. So he's conquering two hurdles, bringing pro hockey to the desert, which people are like, yeah, that's never going to work, and professional sports of any kind. So he had two big hurdles to overcome: getting approval to bring pro sports to the gaming capital of the world, essentially, and putting an ice sport in the desert. Well, and we all know buildings have air conditioning and ice can survive indoors, so we're good. And the National Hockey League saw the value. And did they ever see the value? I think the Golden Knights did more for the game of hockey, if not as much or more, than when Wayne Gretzky was traded to the Los Angeles Kings. When Gretzky was traded from Edmonton to Los Angeles, it was the biggest news in all of pro sports. And what it did for hockey in Southern California is ridiculous. You had the greatest player of all time now living in LA with a beautiful supermodel wife, who are the most down-to-earth people ever. If you ever get the chance to meet Wayne Gretzky, he's like a dude. He's like, hey man, good to see you. But he's the GOAT. And what it did for SoCal was ridiculous. And then when I moved from New York to Los Angeles in the late 90s or early 2000s, I was able to go to Kings games, and I didn't get to see Wayne. Unfortunately, he had retired by that point, but like, here I am living as a starving actor in Los Angeles, and I'm going to, professional hockey games in LA. And I'm like, man, this is awesome. And so when the Golden Knights came to Vegas, I think the impact on the sport was just as big as it was then, because it opened up a whole new market of fans in a way that I don't think many people outside of Vegas understand. And I'm talking even hockey people, because they're like diehard hockey fans still rag on the Golden Knights, but they don't understand that, we have 300,000 full-time Canadian residents in Las Vegas.
Right. Wow.
So that's enough people to fill most major cities across Canada, across the United States. So our fan base is very knowledgeable here about the game of hockey. And that's something that I think we still take a lot of shade for, publicly on social. I'll see people commenting, oh, Golden Knights fans don't know what they're talking about. They have no clue. And I'm like, listen, I'm a fan. I might work for the team. But I grew up in Hockeytown, Canada. Vegas is now my home and has been for 13 years. You're going to tell me I don't know anything about the game of hockey? And there are many people just like me here who live and breathe the Golden Knights. And what Mr. Foley was able to do for the city, I don't think will ever be replicated.
I don't either. I remember the first year going to the Stanley Cup, not going, but the team going to the Stanley Cup. I was traveling around a lot. I came back home and I was listening to, I think it was one of the classic rock stations, and somebody got on, and I'm butchering this a little bit, but I think they said something to the effect of, I am from Vegas. I've been here basically my whole life, and I was never a sports fan. I was never a sports fan. Like, this is a person saying this. I'm like, wow, man, and they're like, until we got the hockey team. And then was I not only a sports fan, I mean, it didn't matter. When I got to experience what the Knights were and what the city became, I not only became a sports fan, but I became a diehard hockey fan. And I was like, I was listening to this and I go, that's powerful. And that's the effect that the team had. And it just, and obviously the situation of when the team started too, with the shooting and the event, I feel like them just winning the Stanley Cup last year was tying the bow, right? And finishing off what they had already started. And that accomplishment, and you can probably attest to this because you were in there every day, but I went down to the parade and I was filming some stuff, and I met more people that were from out of town that came to support and champion the parade. Utah, California. I'm like, where are you from? Hey, California. Your Knights? We love the Knights. We've did it. We are diehards. And I'm like, that's profound. So your point of like, it changed the sport, I think it changed the city drastically. And so not only was it, hey, we're no longer just Vegas. We're a party, fun, energetic experience now. Now we're a championship city, right? Which that was never part of a conversation, man, ever in this city. Vegas was never a championship city, and now it is. And so it's been incredible to watch that. I'm curious more about your like journey within that. Like, you have like because I always get curious, people I think are also the same way, like going in there and being a part of those moments. Do you think that, and maybe you can give me some context here, because you said like these guys are like, hey man, this guy's around the city, he's doing some things. These a couple of guys that you said went over to MSG, and then the other guy, what was his name? Start with C?
Johnny and Nami, yeah. Yeah, good guys.
They said, hey, this smart kid's young, he's got some talent, he's creative. Were you already doing something beyond rock? Had you already started the space and Monday's Dark at this point? So you were starting to bring people in and create a platform there that they knew stuff about you, and you were starting to build your profile there?
100%. Okay. So Monday's Dark started almost immediately after coming to Vegas, just from the fact that, again, going back to that community element, as an entertainer on the Strip, affiliated with a big show, if there was a charity event happening in town, that charity event would invite various performers, headliners from the Strip to come and walk the red carpet. And I tell this story a lot, like Vegas is red carpet happy. They'll open an Applebee's in Summerlin and they'll put a red carpet out, right? Like, they want red carpets everywhere. So as performers in Rock of Ages, we would put the costume on and we would go to a ballroom where there's an event happening and walk a carpet, take a picture in costume and leave. We wouldn't even know really who the charity was or what they were doing, but we were asked to go and take a picture to help publicize the event. I got sick of that quickly. I was like, I'd have to go to the Venetian, put my costume on at 5 o'clock, get in a car, they take me to the event, I'd take a picture, be like, what up, everybody? And then go back and have to do the show. And I'm like, this is getting old. So my wife and I decided Monday's Dark would be the thing we would do to give back to the community. And the name comes from the fact that Broadway's traditionally dark on Monday. It's our night off. So entertainers on stage get 4 nights off a month. That's it. We would work Tuesday through Sunday, 8 shows a week. We do 2 shows on a Saturday, 2 shows on Sunday. Monday would be our day off, and we'd go back to work on Tuesday. So on my night off, I would gather entertainers. I'd host this goofy variety show where anybody could show up and do what they do, is perform. Not in costume, not as the Cirque du Soleil clown or the Jersey Boy or the Rock of Ages person. It was just you as an actor, performer, singer, dancer, whatever, would donate your talent and we'd give all the money away. And that's how Monday's Dark was born. So to date, we've thrown about 181 parties, we call them a party, for 181 different local nonprofits. We never repeat a nonprofit. And in 90 minutes, we raised $10,000, charging $20 to $50 a ticket. And so now we have this great cult following. We've raised almost $2 million for the city of Las Vegas with these 180 nonprofits. And we turned 10 years old this December. It's been a decade of our small little community giving back in a way that we just know how to. We're entertainers. We're performers. We're not going to cure cancer. We're not going to get a woman out of a brutal situation. We're not going to rescue animals. We're just going to throw parties for those causes. And every other Monday, our group writes a check for 10 grand. And it's something we're incredibly proud of. It's sort of the lifeblood of my presence in Las Vegas, in addition to all of the front-facing gigs that I have. But at the core of my day-to-day life, Monday's Dark and the space is the venue, is at the forefront of everything I do. When I wake up every morning, it's usually business about the space and Monday's Dark, and then it'll pivot into, what do I got going on for Top Rank Boxing this week? Do we have a Golden Knights game tonight? So that's sort of the hierarchy, and I'm proud of that. There's nothing wrong with that. It's my passion. It's going back to how we started the conversation today, sitting around that dining room table, figuring out how we're going to help people. Yeah. And so our mission, my wife and I in Las Vegas, is to continue providing services through Monday's Dark that impact and give back to our community, all while focusing on our day-to-day life with our our job responsibilities that we're paid to do.
Right.
Monday's Dark right now is all volunteer, has been for 10 years.
Wow.
Some folks get a small stipend for certain elements of the gig. But, like I said, we've raised $2 million for the city, charging $20. It's really become this grassroots cool party on a Monday night. And we're not stopping anytime soon. And we've got even bigger plans, which hopefully we can talk about next year when I come back to sit with you. But that's at the forefront of everything I do. When I wake up, it's the space and Monday's Dark on the brain.
That's incredible. Yeah. So that goes back to that whole concept of, like I said before, you're not just an entertainer, you're an entrepreneur entertainer, right? I mean, would you classify yourself as that, as you're a business mind?
Yeah,
right?
I think you have to be. I think it goes back to talking about the hustle and the grind and being at a level maturity-wise that you can succeed. People aren't going to give you anything in this life. You got to go out and get it. It doesn't matter what you do. You got to go out and get it. But you have to have
Let me jump in on that real quick,
go.
because I think I'm very curious on your perspective on that. And don't lose your thought, because I want you to keep going. But do you feel that as you get older and you become more successful, that the mindset there could change to where things come more to you? Because it's a possibility, right? Because you've done more, you get more type of thing. Or do you think it's, even in your case, it's more valuable to keep maintaining that attitude of, I'm going to go fucking get it, irregardless. Like, I'm going to go get it, right? So I'm curious what your perspective is on that.
I think I've gotten to a point, and I think you're spot on. I think most are like, I'm going to go get it. I don't care. I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it. About a year and a half ago, and this is it's very relevant, what I'm about to admit, is I've gotten to a point where I don't need it anymore. Time is all we have. Time is everything to me now. And I value my time more than I ever have in my entire life. So the days of, well, I'm going to grind through this 20-hour workday just because I love work and I got to do this, that's not in my mindset anymore, because I think I've gotten to an age where I understand I'm not immortal. When you're younger and you're in your 20s, even into your 30s, you feel like I can't be stopped. I've got this. Unfortunately, there are things in our world that can stop you dead in your tracks. And we're talking about cancer or getting hit by a truck or whatever. And unfortunately for my wife and I, over the last 2 years, we've lost a lot of our great friends who are younger than I am to shitty diseases and things of that nature. And so it put things into perspective for us very quickly. Very quickly, like slap in the face, gut punched, where I didn't want to go to a hockey game. That's how upset I was.
Wow.
I didn't want to go to work that night because I was like, this is not fair. This shouldn't be happening. And so for me, over the last year and a half, literally year and a half, I've put a pause on things, all things, where I was like, there's a disagreement at work with a coworker. There's, a situation that may not be so great over here. I just didn't let them affect me as much as I used to, right? Where I would just butt heads or get my way or barrel through and get to the other side, and we come out on top and it's successful and we hug it out at the end. My mindset's a little different where I'm like, getting through that or barreling through and coming out at the end and being successful isn't worth my time. I don't need that vindication or that success through that battle, because what that battle will cause is an absorption of so much of my time. And time is all I have. So I only want to work with cool people.
Right.
I only want to work on projects that I want to work on.
Yep.
And I want to make sure that whatever I'm doing with my time, it's for a reason that actually fulfills me and my wife and my family and my parents and my brothers and sisters and serves a purpose, you know? And again, I don't have time anymore to waste on pursuits that may not be
in
line with what we got going on.
Right.
So while they may look cool and sound cool, do I really need that anymore? Nah. And also too, it's understanding who you are as a person, knowing your value, knowing your worth, and then staying true to that and not listening to the outside voices so much. It's so difficult now. Even I'm 46 years old. It's even difficult at my age to pick up your phone sometimes and see what social media has to throw at you.
Sure.
You know, you're constantly comparing or looking at what other people are doing and saying, well, I should be over there and I should be doing that. And I always remind myself, as the 20-something actor in New York, there were moments where I was frustrated, right? Where I was like, I'm not getting these roles. I'm perfect for these parts. Why am I not getting these parts? And that was me in that moment years ago. And I look back on those moments now and go, I wasn't perfect for those parts. I wasn't good in that role. There's a reason why I didn't get it. Yeah. You know, that's not me.
Right.
You know, I'm thinking I'm going to go out and be this role or that. And I'm like, no, your role is the role that you're right for when the time is right. And the moment's right. So I'm a little all over the place with that answer, but it all comes back to time for me now. I only want to spend my time with great people, you know, and I've had a lot of friends around me remind me of that, because they would see how busy I was and they'd make the comments, dude, you're everywhere. It's so cool to see you everywhere. Yeah. And I would hear that for years. Right. People saying, well, you're there, you're here, you're there, you're everywhere, you're awesome, man. And it didn't really sit with me until, you know, you get that punch in the gut and you're like, hey, you better make sure that what you're doing with your time is what you really want to be doing. And so I found myself cutting things out of my life, including people, you know, who didn't have the best interests at heart for my time. Not necessarily the project or the gig, just my time. Yeah. Like, I'm not going to sit here and talk to you if it's a bunch of BS and wasted, you know, but I saw what your show was about and how you approached your interviews. And I was like, oh, this is a good use of my time. Yeah. You know, and I can probably use this to let people hear my story, and maybe it inspires somebody else, or maybe it encourages them to come to one of my charity events. That's a good use of my time. Yeah. But there was some dark moments this last year and a half where I was just depressed about losing people because I wanted more time with them.
Wow.
You know, and that's
profound.
That's just everything, you know, and I think about my family, you know, my beautiful parents, they're 84 years old, 82 years old. Yeah. We don't have that much time, you know, and I want to spend as much time with people I love, doing the things that I love.
Yeah. Oh man, that's I have the chills, goosebumps, man. I mean, because I understand that, because we're having the same conversation on our side of the table as well. You know, my dad's still in his 60s, which is beautiful. We're taking him to the East Coast next week. We're going on New York. We're doing New York. We're doing Chicago, Philly. It's part in work, but we're still bringing him along because of that, right? I feel like if we can get the maximum out of the experiences, then when that time does come, there's a satisfaction internally where it's like there's grief because you no longer have that person with you, but you will ask yourself, did I do the most that I could in this situation to be around and spend that quality time? And I think it's obvious you're doing a good job of that. probably at great lengths. It's just because the family value and dynamic that you've always had. How does what you just said influence what your trajectory looks like forward? As in, do you continue to grow a business out of, the space, or does an enhancement come to Monday's Dark, or are you satisfied where you're at right now with the Knights, the Raiders, Top Rank, or is there another graduation point for you because you're obviously hungry? It's part of you, right? But you are making decisions differently because time. Yep. So you're cutting waste. That's great. But how about from that other angle of, is there still more in the tank for you that you want to accomplish? And how do you navigate those things?
Yeah, 100%. And I also think, I'm fortunate because of the platforms that I carry with some of the roles that I currently have, right? And leverage that to give back even more, leverage the fact that I'm a top rank guy to get out to the top rank boxing community, that I do this charity event and I encourage you to come and support it. You won't be disappointed. And then those opportunities present themselves now because of, hey, that's the guy, or he's the Golden Knights guy, or he's the Top Rank guy. And so sometimes business opportunities, whether it's personally for me as a host or an actor, pop up, or business opportunities behind the scene where like, hey, would you be interested in investing in this opportunity, right? So I've got my hands in a lot of pots. But again, I strategically look at those opportunities as they present themselves to ensure that A, it's not going to take up too much of my time, and B, it's going to be fun to work on.
Yeah, totally.
And I use those two things as the indicators of whether or not to even move forward with the conversation. I love entertainment. I love the film and TV business. I love the theater. I love music. So I've got my hands in a couple of those endeavors where I'm not the front-facing focus. I'm just the guy behind the scenes helping steer the ship a little bit. And that's new, right? And I'm loving those opportunities because I don't have to talk about them. Yeah. I don't need to promote them. I don't need to be the guy trying to pack the room or sell the tickets. I'm just helping, on a business side, cultivate a scene or a culture. And that's very important to me too, is, I don't think I'm old. I still feel like I'm 20 years old most days.
You look it.
But thank you. I'll take it. But I am seeing now that I'm not tech savvy, man. And I'm so grateful for that. Like, I'm so grateful that I didn't grow up in a generation of that phone.
Totally.
Right? Because there was stuff that I was doing back then. I would have been, I don't know that I'd still be around, to be quite honest. I was the goofy kid, playing in the bush. That's my generation.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't have internet when I was a kid.
Right.
So I'm outside building guns and building forts and, digging snow caves as a kid. So I'm very grateful for that, but I'm also grateful that I have I was born at a time when I see the transition of what technology has done. And, I try to surround myself with people who have answers to things, because I'll get asked, hey, Shunock, can you do this? And I'll be like, sure, no problem.
Yeah.
I have no idea what they're talking about. And I get on the phone. I'm like, hey, I just got a call. We need to bail these guys out. We need to do this. So it's a cool time. So as long as it's fun and it doesn't take up a lot of my time, you'll get me 100%.
Yeah.
Like I said at the top, if I'm committed to something, if I say yes to something, you're getting 100% of me. Otherwise, I don't do it, because I expect that of those who work on projects with me.
Right.
If you say you're going to do something, do it.
Right.
And, my dad was a big advocate of, if you're going to do it right the first time, or don't do it at all. Because nobody wants to call you back. Nobody wants to have you come back and fix the thing that you should have done right the first time. And then also, too, we had this joke growing up where, we had this wonderful home. It was an older home, but the home always felt like a make-work project, right? And that was our term we used, where we had 5 kids who wanted to please their parents, and we'd see projects that we could possibly take on at the house. We're like, oh, I'm going to build this new gate. But by building that gate, you got to replace the fence that gets to the gate. So it's a make-work project. Don't take on make-work projects. They may sound cool, but it may open up a can of worms where it becomes all of this extra work that you didn't see.
Yeah.
So that's a big one for me.
Sure.
I like to see things that are really strategic, really properly planned, easily executable at a high level, and we come in and hit it and quit it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, make work projects, not fun. And you have a house, you live in an apartment. You want to paint that wall? Well, good, paint that wall, but you got to tape it out and you might have to do the ceiling and new baseboards. That becomes a make work project. So I look at things like that. How much work is this going to be? And is it going to make more work than it needs to be? And then you literally look at your watch and go, I don't have time for that. And it's unfortunate because when I was younger, I took it all.
Yeah.
I said yes to everything.
Yep.
I was a yes man. I was like, you need that? Yes, I'm there. Hold the microphone, sing this song, do that show, make that movie. Yes, 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 yes. Now there's, I would say 50-50 yeses and nos. And it's very, I'm blessed to have that opportunity to be in that position where I can say no, but it's not no because I don't want to do it. 99% of the time, it's no because I'm worried that I won't give you what you're expecting of me.
Sure. Understood. That that is a very strong stance on a decision-making criteria to choose what's right to evaluate and make time use of, which is fun and time. I mean, that's what a great way to look at it. I feel like we are a blended culture now, and we always have been, but like you said, it's been enhanced where now there's messages of you got to go out and hustle every day and grind, and the other message is take your break, relax, life is good, be in your purpose, do all this, feel good stuff. And I think people are getting inundated with what's the right message. And I think it just came through me as you said that it's seasonal. It depends on where you're at in your life, right? I mean, if you're 20, then go hard, right? Like figure out what it's like to work hard. Maybe, or try that other option and see if that works out for you. Like go more purpose focused, but know that you might not be building the caliber of a person or the grit or the resilience to go out there and earn something, but you'll feel good, so you have to understand yourself. It's hard though when you're 20. So it's like, I think that high level of self-awareness is important. And you're saying that is very profound. The thought that I have there is the question that naturally came to me. So what's next for you? Like what's beyond this, right? Like, man, I almost think this is destiny for you. I really believe that because you were like, hey, I was the goofy kid. I was the entertainer. You're trying to play hockey. Like if you line the story up and you look at it, like you say, comes full circle. It's like, dude, that dude was destined for this. It's like, this is part of his plan, right? What else is part of that plan if you're mapping it out, or do you not look at it like that?
No, I do. I think I do now because of the awareness of time, right? When you start to become aware of your time is when you start to map things out a little bit more than I used to, especially in the career that I chose. There's peaks and valleys. You could go a year without working in the entertainment business. CSI New York doesn't call you for those 5 lines this month. You went without work. But because of my awareness of time, things are mapped out now, and I do have clear sights on what I want to do next and what I want to leave this place with. And that's a weird thing to even say, is that I know what I want to do with the rest of my life before I'm done on this planet. And they're not unattainable. My ultimate goal is to just continue to work in sports or entertainment so that I can keep a roof over my head and live a quality of life that I want. And that's not that hard, right? Like once we get into that rhythm and we're working and we can maintain that. But I think for me, where I want to focus most of my time is putting things in place that allow people in hospitality and entertainment specifically, because that's all I've known, how to give back, how to help your neighbor. And I think that's what we've gotten away from in our society today. And I think it comes from the fact that most people, and a lot of people listening are probably going to get pissed off, but they're doing it, is most people are not good listeners. They're listening to this show right now and they may be taking something from it. But I was a terrible listener for a very long time. And that's something that was very hard for me to admit. I thought I knew everything, and I didn't want to listen. And I feel that if everybody, regardless of what you do, could work on the craft of listening and processing what you're hearing, a lot of our problems today would sort of go away. Like when I watch the news, just like everybody else, and I get dialed into this political scene, nobody's listening. A lot of people are talking because they all want to hear themselves say something, but nobody's actually listening to what the other person has to say. And regardless of what side of the aisle you're on, just listen. Just shut up for a minute, listen, but actively listen and process what the other person is saying. So for me, my mission is to continue working on the space and Monday's Dark and elevating its presence so that more people are aware of how easy it is to help somebody. So that's my big mission in life. That's what's planned for me, next steps, because I'm grateful for the fact that I know I should be able, knock on wood, to maintain a career as a host, MC, entertainer for as long as I want.
Sure.
You know, I'm a ring announcer for Top Rank Boxing. It's the greatest job in the world. It really is. Like, I get to introduce warriors for a living, right? And I look at the greatest of all time to do it, Mr. Buffer, you know, who coined the phrase, let's get ready to rumble. If I could have a fifth, a sixth, an eighth of what he has done for not only the sport of boxing, but for entertainment, the guy's a legend. And I'm just getting started. You know, I have this opportunity ahead of me with such an incredible organization to get better and better and learn and grow in that sport and do it as long as I want, hopefully, you know? So I look at that as such a wonderful opportunity and such a great gift that I know that that's there. And I want to make sure that that takes up a good chunk of my time and I'm focused on it and I'm improving daily and working with wonderful people. And then second, I want to let people know how easy it is to make sure your neighbor's taken care of. And that's our family, right? Like that was my parents, always looking out for somebody else, always helping others. They had 5 kids, but yet they made time to help so many people. And then I see that in my older siblings doing the same. So when people ask me, how come you spend 40 hours a week working on a nonprofit where nobody gets paid and you're just constantly putting on these events? The answer is easy. It's because I can.
Because you can.
It's just because I can. And it's what I'm good at.
You've been afforded the privilege, and a positive privilege, of having a great career that pays you. You get to have fun doing that. How could you not? Like, how could you not?
I think most who are given that opportunity, and listen, let's not get wrong. Where's the camera? This one, I can make more money. Top Rank Boxing. I'm kidding.
You heard it first on Always on the Grow.
There's 1 or 2 zeros, but there should be like 6 or 7 or 8. Let's be honest. No, I'm kidding.
Where's that negotiator?
No, I'm not. Hang on, camera. No. So listen, you always want to make more money. You always want to go and earn more. But again, there's no U-Haul behind the hearse, right? So you get to a point where you're like, I don't have kids. I got dogs. My dogs live an incredible life. I take care of my beautiful wife. She works so hard with all of her projects and her endeavors that, you know, you get to a point where you're like, okay, it's time, you know, and I want to experience things. I want to take friends to dinner. I want to travel. And if I was the guy I was in my early 20s to mid 30s, there's no way I'd be able to sit here with you because you'd be distracted. My calendar is full, sir.
No, that's incredible, man. You know, I hear that. Thank you, by the way, and I'm grateful that you've chosen to come join us, man. I mean, I know there's a lot involved in that. You know, that the decision, the qualification, the understanding kind of what's going on behind the lens.
Just scheduling. Yeah. It's definitely. Everything is a schedule.
Definitely with you. When you say you put a little emphasis there on Top Rank. Is that the long-term play? Like, and so you think at some point you'll graduate hockey, you'll stay a season ticket holder, you'll just be a fan, you'll be part of the organization, they love you, but you want to go more focused in on boxing and make that kind of the anchor point? Yeah.
I think so. You know, unless something comes up where there's a pretty special opportunity for me in the sport of hockey. You know, I love the game. I'm very passionate about the game, but the in-arena role, for example, is always been a step in the industry. When you look historically at people who have done the in-arena hosting job for a basketball team, a hockey team, a baseball team, it's always a step to something next. And, I'm fortunate that I didn't set out to be a sports host. I didn't set out to work in sports at all. I wanted to play a game. Didn't happen, so I wanted to be an actor. And then I became an actor. And I had the privilege of being in The Lion King and Rock of Ages and movies and commercials. And I let that world guide me. I let that path guide me. You can't tell entertainment as an actor where to go. Right. You're at the beck and call of agents and managers calling you for auditions. Go to CBS. You got to be on the lot. You got to read for this. You got to do that. So you have to be available. I love structure. Yeah. And that's one of the things that I think sports has allowed is there's a season in hockey. You know when it starts, you know when it's going to end. There isn't one in boxing, but there's super structure to what we do. And Top Rank's this traveling circus, right? We're going from various cities weekly here and there. And I'm on the road maybe 25 to 30 weeks a year.
Wow.
Top Rank does 25 to 30 fights a year, which means I host a press conference on Thursday, I do weigh-ins on Friday, and I'm doing ring announcing on Saturday. So I'm traveling Wednesday and I'm coming home Sunday, 25 to 30 times a year. Now, one of the perks, that's a lot of air miles.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when I talk about time and traveling, I can now take my wife somewhere on points.
So good. Yeah.
So that's something that I never thought of would be a perk, right? But again, also, it's just the family at Top Rank is remarkable. And it reminds me of home. I feel safe. I feel supported. I feel like I can talk to people there. And that's a testament to any organization. It just so happens to be the one that I work for. So
that's incredible.
So they've got me, man. Again, when they put their trust and investment in me, they're going to get all of me, right? And it's just been an unbelievable ride. Yeah. It's going to be difficult one day to walk away from hockey. I had the privilege of working directly for the National Hockey League, and I've been a part of the Golden Knights since before it was even the Golden Knights. Yeah. So I love it. And I have dear friends who are like, man, you can never leave the game. It's not the same without you. And I'll do it as long as I possibly can until that good old four-letter word time kicks in and you just don't have the time to do it anymore. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. My wife elbows me all the time and said, hey, look, you've owned season tickets for the Vegas Golden Knights for 7 seasons now, and you've never sat in your seat to watch a game once. And that kind of sucks. But I'd much rather have the microphone and telling 18,000 fans to get up off their feet and make some noise because that to me is the greatest job in the world.
Your impact will be exponential because of that platform.
It's awesome. I love the game. I love the energy inside T-Mobile Arena. We have the greatest fans in the world, and we won the Stanley Cup. Yeah, man. Come on. I'm giving my dad my ring. Yeah, we get our rings at Thanksgiving. I think the players get them in October. And come on, man, full circle, kind of feeling right? Is that, man? Like I thought I've always wanted to win a Stanley Cup as a player, and here I am winning it as a goofy host. I'm like, okay, I'll take it. And I think I posted it once, and I haven't posted it since. I put it on my story. Game 5, I was on the ice after we won it all, doing some interviews, and Gavin Maloof had the Stanley Cup. I think it was Gavin. And he said, Shunock, it's all yours. And I panicked. I was like, what are you talking about? I had my earpiece in. I had my microphone. I was like, whatever. I chucked my mic to somebody. And I was like, is this really happening? And it was really happening. I grabbed the cup and I got to hoist the Stanley Cup on the ice after the Golden Knights won it. And again, I play such a small role there. Dude, it's such a small part of what people experience at a hockey game. But I'm such a kid in a candy store and humbled. I'm forever a Golden Knight. They've changed my life. And for the better. I got my name on a Stanley Cup ring, and it's an unbelievable feeling. I don't think it still hasn't set in. Yeah. We won it all, and it was such a whirlwind to plan the parade and get through that summer. Essentially, it's the end of June, and here we are about to drop the puck in a week for opening night. It kind of hit me when I woke up one morning. I always check my phone, and I'm like, hey, what's the day bringing? I look at my calendar, and there was an email staff-wide to all full-time employees saying, please schedule your time to get fitted for a ring. And that's when it hit me. It was 8:30. My wife was on the road on a gig, and I literally started crying. I was like, I'm in bed at 8:30 with my dogs, crying that I got to schedule a fitting for a Stanley Cup ring. And it's been a remarkable journey, and I just feel like I'm just getting started.
I can tell how humble you are by nature, just the energy, right? That's why I like doing these in persons, because you can feel things. And I think you've humbled yourself in saying, "Hey, I play a small part in that." But I do believe that there is no small part in any organization. It all has to work together. And the energy you bring in that arena, and the showing up and being there and championing a crowd, like, those aren't easy tasks, man. I mean, you were blessed with the opportunity, and you capitalized on it. And you've, just like the players, right? The players that won this Stanley Cup, all of them that played the last 4, 5, 6 seasons weren't there to win the Stanley Cup, right? But they did. And that's kind of where the opportunity landed, man. So God bless to you, man. I mean, that's just incredible. I hope that your father enjoys that.
He'll be here in December for our Monday's Dark 10th anniversary, and
I was going to say,
we'll have the ring by then, and it'll definitely make its way around the dining room table. Yeah. That's for sure.
So tell us, because I know that was important to you, and then we'll wrap up and get this out of here, because I know you've got a busy schedule, and then I'll ask you one last question. But tell us about the 10-year anniversary. Tell us where we can find you, follow you, and explore what else you've got going on, and then I'll ask you my last question.
Perfect. Monday's Dark, like I said, it's my passion. It's a 90-minute variety show that I host every other Monday. But on December 11th of this year, we're going to take over the Pearl Theater at the Palms Hotel Casino. There'll be 2,000 locals in attendance, hopefully. Buy tickets. Mondaysdark.com. Monday with an S. So mondaysdark.com. Our goal is to raise $250,000 that night. Tickets are $20, and it's a party you don't want to miss. It's in the theater. It's 90 minutes. On social media, it's just my name, so hopefully my name's on the screen somewhere. It's Mark Shunock on all platforms. Please give me a follow, hit me up. Like, you slipped into my DMs I responded, man. And I was like, let's go.
It works.
Yeah, absolutely. I love hearing from people, even the haters. I got trolls. I got some boxing diehards who absolutely can't stand me. And then I have some boxing diehards who are just so grateful for a fresh breath of fresh air. Yeah. So at Mark Shunock on social media, and mondaysdark.com for all things my nonprofit and giving back to Vegas.
Amazing. Yeah, well, man, we'll put some work into that, man. I'm making my vow to see what I can do to help you.
You better be there on the 11th.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Tickets on me.
That's a given. Amazing, man. Well, again, as I said, incredible. I feel extremely thankful that you were willing to communicate in the DMs. I was like, there's some connection there. We can, like you, I believe that, and I always know that whenever I invite somebody here, they've got a great message to some extent, right? And so that's for the people to understand and spirit of growth, right? So you're amazing, man. That's incredible.
Thank you.
Last question is, over here, you can see it behind me. The name of the podcast and the brand represents, obviously, constant and never-ending evolution. So I always ask everybody, what does Always on the Grow mean to you?
I think I can just take it back, 5 minutes ago, working on becoming a better listener. Yeah, I think for me, that's my biggest challenge. Always will be, just taking a deep breath, taking a step back, and becoming a better listener. Mm-hmm. I think if I become a better listener, I become more patient. I can see things differently, and that will lead to success, and whatever that success is defined by, however you want to define it. But I think for me, my Always on the Grow is just trying to become a better listener day in and day out, to my wife, to my dogs, to my colleagues at work, so that I can understand. Yeah. You can't understand, you can't dive in and really get a comprehension of what's going on if you can't listen. Yeah. And for me, it's listening so that I can be just a better person.
Yeah. That's deep, man. That's powerful. I think that's It's an alternative way to look at having a modern day real life superpower, right? Because or a competitive edge, which man, everybody listen to this podcast over and over again. And like Mark says, don't be double-minded. Don't look at your phone. Don't be trying to talk to somebody else at the same time. Be there. Hey man.
This was great. Thanks
Appreciate
for having
you,
me on.
God bless, man.